Hello and welcome to A-Level Psychology at ESCG Hastings campus. My name's Corrine and I'm going to take you through a little bit about psychology at Hastings. I'm going to begin with a short introduction to the team. So I work alongside Nanushka and there's a little bit of blurb about our backgrounds there, but essentially we are a very experienced team. We've got many years of teaching experience between us, and we aim to make our students feel really secure in their knowledge and to support them really effectively as they develop the skills that they need for the A-level. And another key person is Chantella Telly, who's the head of sixth form, and we work with her in an enthusiastic and proactive way to support our students. You might be wondering, good question is, what is psychology? So I've got a definition there on the screen for you. Psychology is the science of mind and behaviour, how people think, feel, act and interact. It's a really diverse discipline, multifaceted, and the great thing about the AQA A-level, which is the A-level that we teach, is it gives you an introduction to that diversity. So we look at everything from the biology of behaviour, the biopsychology of behaviour. So we look at how the brain and nervous system affects our behaviour, how we feel and act. But we also look at the other extreme at social behaviour and how the presence of other people can affect an individual's behaviour and how people interact with the group. So it's really diverse and you get a good sense of that, really interesting stuff to learn. Also, really important part of A-level psychology is research methods and understanding how psychologists carry out their investigations and how they analyse their data. So that's really important to the course, and actually up to 25 to 30% of your final assessment mark will be based on your understanding of research methods. It's also worth noting that about 10% of your final assessment is based on maths skills. So it's only GCSE level maths, but if you're not comfortable with maths, it may not be, or psychology A-level may not be for you. Alongside the content, we help you develop some important skills, so analysis of information, of different theories. We also support your development of critical thinking and evaluation, so looking at how you can use evidence and argument to assess how well the different theories explain human behaviour. And another key area is using your knowledge and applying it to novel situations to interpret behaviour. So some really good key transferable skills that you learn in the psychology course. Entry requirements for the A-level programme are 5 GCSEs at grade 4 or above, but because of the specific requirements of A-level psychology, we do ask for at least grade 5 in maths and also at least grade 5 in English language. And the English requirement is because, as well as needing to be able to analyse data, you also need to be able to write well-detailed and clear, logical essays. So you need to be quite the all-rounder. In terms of what you're going to study on the course, we've got a breakdown here of Year 1 and Year 2. We do study the AQA psychology specification, and you can visit their website for more information about the content of the course. I'm just going to canter through what we look at in Years 1 and 2. We look at social influence. We kick off with social influence, which is about how individuals and groups affect each other's behaviour. So we look at things like conformity and obedience. Memory examines different types of memory, reasons for forgetting, and also the applied area of eyewitness testimony. So how can things affect the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, and also how can it be improved? How can we use psychology to improve it? Attachment refers to our first relationships, when and how we make those relationships, how they influence our later relationships, and also what can happen if we don't make that first attachment relationship, or if we receive a lack of emotional care. Psychopathology looks at the psychology of mental disorder, and there we look at the issue of how do you define what's normal, so-called normal, and abnormal behaviour, And we also hone in on 3 specific areas. So we look at phobias, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and depression. We look at the symptoms of those disorders, the different explanations for them, and also how they're treated too. Approaches in psychology is the topic where you really get the sense of how diverse psychology is. So we look at the competing theories or perspectives and the different ways that they explain behaviour. And then finally, research methods. Research methods actually runs throughout year 1, and it's a core area. We do look at different research methods such as experiments, interviews, observations, something called content analysis. So we look at the methods that psychologists use in their research, and you get a kind of a practical understanding of that too. So you'll have a little go at those methods. And we also look at how psychologists analyse their data, including statistical analysis. In year 2, we kick off with issues and debates. So they're things like the nature-nurture debate. To what extent is human behaviour a matter of genetic inheritance as opposed to experience and upbringing? And can you separate the two? We look at issues such as gender bias and cultural bias in psychology and how they might affect theories. And we look at the issue of whether behaviour, we have control over our behaviour, whether we can make choices about our behaviour, or whether our behaviour is actually caused by forces that are beyond our control. So that's called the free will and determinism debate. Biopsychology is a really interesting area, and we look at things like the plasticity of the brain, how the brain can adapt to experience and even trauma. We look at biological rhythms, so things like the sleep-wake cycle, and also what's called localization of function, so how different areas of the brain have been associated with different behaviours. And then in the final part of the course, we move on to some specific options in psychology. So our options currently are gender, schizophrenia, and forensic psychology. So with gender, we're looking at the psychology of gender and gender development. With schizophrenia, which is a serious mental disorder, we look at the diagnosis of schizophrenia, how it's diagnosed, and also the different explanations for the disorder and the different treatments for it too. And forensic psychology is a very popular area of study and of interest. That's where we look at things like offender profiling, different explanations of offender behaviour, and also different ways of dealing with offender behaviour. So quite a packed 2 years. It's 100% examination, the course. So at the end of the 2 years, you'll sit 3 exams, and they are equally weighted. They're worth the same amount each. How will I study on the course? Well, currently, our students have 3 1.5-hour lessons in class, but we really expect our students to do a lot of work outside as well. So you will be expected to do preparation work for sessions, and that might be research tasks, it might be looking at key terms and coming with that knowledge to class, to be prepared for that, to go over that in class. But it's also about reviewing your knowledge outside of class, maybe doing assessments as well. That's really important. So being an independent learner is very important to us. In terms of assessment, you'll be assessed in every lesson through quizzes, tests, but also we will have more formal assessments once every half term, and they'll be like mock exams, and that'll help us to ensure that you're making progress if you come on to A-level psychology. Good question is, what can I do with A-level psychology? So many, in fact, most of our students go on to study at university. Some of them will be studying psychology and an undergraduate course, but they also study various other subjects too. And that's another thing to mention about psychology. It really works well with a lot of other different subjects at A-level. So it goes well with biology, there's a complement there, but also with sociology, with law, history, and even English literature. So it's a really quite versatile subject at A-level. Because it's about people, and we all work with people, the knowledge base is hugely valuable in many walks of life. But there are some specific areas, and I've listed them there on the screen, that may be especially useful for. So if you're going into police or prison service, and counselling, or working in the area of mental health, teaching, education, really valuable in those areas. If you want to know more about careers in psychology, particularly specialist careers such as forensic psychology or clinical psychology, I'd recommend that you visit the British Psychological website. They have an area dedicated to careers, which is very interesting, very informative, and there's the link there on the screen for you. In terms of additional costs, there's not many for psychology. The main investment for our students is in terms of the textbook, and that's about £27 per year. So there's a separate textbook for year 1 and year 2 of the course. The one that we tend to recommend our students buy is there on the screen. It's the Green Haired Girl book, and it's just out in its 2nd edition. So if you are going to invest in that, do get the 2nd edition. We may have additional costs for trips, but that's been slightly curtailed this year. Just wanted to end with a little checklist of things for making a successful psychology student. Is psychology with you? Well, for you, well, let's just see. Are you organised and determined? One thing our psychology students always tell us is there's so much information, so you need to be able to keep on top of that information, to keep reading, to keep understanding, to keep engaging with it, and to keep organising it too. Do you have that interest in science? That's really important. You're going to be learning about all those different theories and concepts, and you're going to need to be able to use them. May seem obvious, but an interest in psychology. So psychology is about people. Are you curious about people? Do you want to know more about behaviour? You can often apply what you learn to yourself and to others around you. Are you interested in doing that? A love of discussion is important because of the diverse nature of psychology, because of the competing theories and explanations. So you need to be able to want to contribute to that, and to have, to a certain extent, an open mind to be able to engage with it effectively. And finally, just reiterating about the literacy and numeracy skills. You need to be a bit of an all-rounder, to have the math skills, to have the English language skills, because of the demands of the course. And finally, last but not least, you do need to be a motivated and independent student. As I said earlier, we expect our students to work outside of class as much as they are in class. And that's really important for us, and it will help to make you a successful psychology student. If you think psychology is for you, or if you have any questions about it, please do get in touch with us. There's mine and Nanushka's contact details on screen for you. Best of luck for the future. Have a good think about things, and do get in touch if you'd like to. Bye-bye.